He had a date with Weiss. The thought didn't bring the excitement it might have been in his original lifetime. Instead, it brought a sense of trepidation. What if he couldn't do anything to cheer Weiss's mood? What if this only made things more awkward between them? What if he screwed up? Yang slapped a hand against his back. "Sit still," she growled, his hair between her fingers and a brush clenched in her teeth. "Stop panicking as well. God, I never thought you'd be the one to get antsy over a date." "Sorry." He took a deep breath and tried to stop fidgeting, aware the whole time of Yang's position behind him as she fought to bring his hair under some sense of control. She'd been insistent on doing it, and of helping in general. The moment he told them he had a date with Weiss. They knew the reason, of course. He filled them both in on how she suddenly asked for it. Neither of them knew the reason either, and he felt confident in saying that he'd have told them if they did. Either way, making sure the date went well soon became the priority. "Where's Blake?" he asked. "I sent her off with your suit," Yang said. She ran the brush across his fingers and hummed. It's not in a bad state. You didn't get it dirty. Still, it looked nicer if it's freshly pressed and steamed." Jaune chuckled. "You're good at this." No idea why. I've never been on a date myself. "What?" "Not a real one," she amended. "I've dated a few guys, and they took me to the movies, the mall, and some dinky fast food restaurant. I don't really count those as real dates, though. None of them put any effort into it. Just thought they could buy me a soda, then asked to suck face." Yang growled something under her breath. "Anyways, knowing Weiss, this one will be better. She does like to excel in everything she does. Even dating." Yang laughed. "Nice. I can buy it. So, she didn't give any answer as to why she's been acting so weird?" "No, none at all." Jaune allowed Yang to tilt his head to the side. "I'm hoping this will help." "And you have no idea what it might be. You're usually pretty perceptive. Weirdly so. More in the know than perceptive. Either way, it didn't help him here. In all honesty, he didn't know if this was normal or not, as cruel as it sounded. Weiss had never been the center of his attention. He didn't know if this was normal or not. But with the drama between her dad, it made sense she might be in a foul mood. It might never have been important enough for him to pay attention to, though. This was, after all, a time usually reserved for Cinder. "I've got nothing," he said. "The only thing I can think of is something with her family." "About her bank account, you mean?" Yang snorted. "Talk about a controlling parent. Even my dad wouldn't go that far." "I wouldn't," Jaune confirmed. Yang paused, then burst into laughter. "You idiot," she giggled. "I meant my real dad." "Oh, yeah, right. Damn it." Yang's silly joke had become such a staple. He'd actually started to react to the word and assume she meant him. At least he didn't fall for it in public. He wasn't sure if his already shaky reputation could handle her calling him Daddy, and him responding. "It makes sense though," Yang said, referring to Weiss and her father. "I mean, not how he does things, but that it might cause problems. While it was cool of you to make that second account for her, all it would do is piss off her father." She sighed. And we both know who'd he take that frustration out on. Jaune's grimace did little to convey the true depths of his anger. If that ended up being the truth, then he might have to do something about it. He'd comfort Weiss first, of course. She was more important than anything else. If he'd caused something, though, then he was at least partly responsible. "That's assuming it's the reason at all," Yang warned. "You can't just go off and kill Weiss's dad just because we think he might be a dick." "Might? The guy cut Weiss's money. Okay, so he's definitely a dick. Either way, You don't know for sure it's him Weiss is upset at. Hold off on the Avenger murder angle, please. It's bad enough people give me weird looks when I call a guy my age daddy. Yang grinned. I don't want to imagine what those looks would turn to if I then admit my daddy is in prison. Funny, for you of all people to accuse me of being a criminal. Yang slapped his shoulder from behind. Meanie. That reminds me, actually. Blake and I bumped into some old friends of ours earlier. Yang's tone told a story of what she thought of said friends. Who? I'll tell you after your date. She said, I don't want to distract you from it. He raised an eyebrow at that, but let it be. If it were important, she'd have told him. Well, that or he'd have already known about it thanks to his past lives. As far as he could tell, there was nothing coming up other than the end. Pyrrha would be chosen as the maiden, Cinder would initiate her attack, and Beacon would fall or hold. Well, that and Mercury tricking of Yang. I'd have to try and stop that. What's the point of trying to save them if I don't spare Yang the misery? Luckily, he had a few ideas. It might be enough, if not put a stop to that plan altogether. The door to the room opened, Blake stepping through with a black bag in hand. I've got it, she said, laying the long thing on his bed. A coat hanger poked from the top, and for the tag the bag made it clear what was inside. I had to pay a little extra due to the lack of warning, but the old lady seemed willing enough once I explained what it was for. Aww, how cute! Yang laughed. Good job, Blake. She tapped his shoulder. There, I'm done. Get up and put on the suit. I want to make sure you look good in it. Yes, daughter. Jaune sighed and stood up, moving over to pick it up. He looked to the two of them, only to find that they both already turned around to face the wall. What? Had they never seen a guy in his underwear before? He rolled his eyes and shucked off his clothing, pulling the suit on and buttoning the white shirt up. It fit as well as it had the last time, tailored to match his form almost exactly. It looked good, even if it did make him look more a personal bodyguard than a gentleman. The Atlesian military design was obvious, but it was still a far cry better than anything else he had. Anything he could get either, since Weiss hadn't exactly given him much time to prepare. I'm decent, he said. You can turn around now. I'd say a little more than decent. Yang looked him up and down. Damn. If you look like that normally, I think even I might be interested. Yang? Oh, come on, Blake. You have to admit he looks good. A little too Atlas for my taste. Blake sent him a small smile to say she didn't mean anything by it. I've had plenty of poor encounters with them. Still, it does bring out your eyes. I don't imagine Weiss will have any room to complain. As usual, to them, it was all about him dating Weiss, and their excitement for it. He didn't want to rain on their parade by saying otherwise, though. In a way, this was one of the memories he wanted to preserve as well. Blake and Yang were incredible, in a way he'd never experienced before. Ruby sure is lucky to be on a team with them. At least normally. I thought Pyrrha, Ren and Nora and I were close, but this feels like an actual family. Or was it that their team was different to how Ruby were? He wasn't sure. What time does she want you to meet her? Blake asked. 7? He said, as you well know. It was a hint. She looked towards the clock. It read 6:30. You should go now. You don't want to be late. Don't I not want to be early either? Yang and Blake crossed their arms, sharing one of those inscrutable looks between them. It didn't take a genius to see they didn't agree, even if he wasn't sure why. Okay, I'll go. He held his arms out, lest they attack. I'll walk around a little and get there 10 minutes early. Is that okay? Don't get lost. Blake growled. Wow, such faith. Did they really think he'd mess around with something like this? Apparently so. He supposed they were just worried for Weiss's sake. They needn't be. He wouldn't have purposely done anything to hurt either of them. A few people gave him odd looks as he walked down the corridors. It wasn't exactly normal to see someone in their best finery, especially so early in the afternoon. He figured a few realized what was going on, for some girls gasped, whispered among themselves, and then giggled as they walked away. Most of the guys just shot him irritated looks. I can't go there early, he thought, even beyond the whole looking desperate thing. Weiss might not be ready. I don't want to rush her if she's not. Weiss was one for her punctuality, after all. If she wanted to take her time, he didn't see the need to get in her way. Winter was there too, it being her room. And the longer he could put that off, the better. He found a quieter clove, in between Port's classroom and the public bathrooms. He pulled out his scroll and dialed a number. Oh! Jaune! Sable laughed when she saw him. How are you? Wait, is that a suit? Hi, Sable. Don't hi Sable me. Answer my question. That's a suit. Where are you going? His second older sister pushed the screen close to her face. Are you going on a date? I suppose you could say that. He winced when she squealed, and then winced again when he saw her cover the receiver and shout something off to the side. Oh dear. Now everyone was going to know. What part of this seemed like a good idea again? Oh right. The part where it helped the time go by. Sable. Please. It's the Weiss girl, isn't it? You can just call her Weiss, you know. You're dodging the question. He sighed. Yes, it's her. Oh, I knew it. Oh, Mum will be so happy. You know, she really likes her. I'm aware. I think she's pretty nice too, Sable said. I mean, we haven't really talked all that much. I think I've spoken to Blake and Yang more. Still, they say great things about her, and I can see how close you two are. Wait, when did you talk to Yang and Blake? Never mind. Do you know what's going to happen on this date? Do you have something planned? No? He winced when her eyes hardened. But only because Weiss said she wanted to plan it. She's the one organizing it. Okay. I'll let it go this time, brother. It makes sense since she's assertive, I guess. I take it she's the one who asked you? He nodded. Ah, I thought so. To be honest, I never thought you'd actually end up dating anyone. Such faith. He rolled his eyes. Besides, I'm fairly popular with the women back home. Yeah, in an underneath the covers kind of way, she snorted. Also in a out of sight kind of way. You're like an illic secret. The women do it, or you, but they don't admit it. You're more of a guilty pleasure than a lover. That's why I didn't think you'd actually ever date someone. Wait a minute. Sable gasped. Do you even know how to date someone? What kind of question was that? Jaune snorted. Of course he knew. It hadn't been that long since he'd been on a date with someone, had it? The last time had been Pyrrha, or was it Ruby? Blake, maybe? He paused. Crap. When had the last time been? 100 lifetimes? 2? He had a feeling it was longer. Okay, this is fine. Don't panic. Just try to remember what you and Ruby did. He racked his mind, but all he could bring up was them sitting around and talking, kissing beneath the moonlight, and maybe 1 or 2 trips at a comic store and an ice cream parlor. The idea of taking Weiss to such places was ridiculous. Okay. What about Pyrrha? He could vaguely remember restaurants in that relationship, but that had to be 500 or more years ago. Pyrrha was a terrible romantic idea for him, especially with what always happened to her. While he did love his partner, he'd promised to never fall in love with her again. It just hurt too much. Blake? Nope. Those dates were less dates and something far more intimate. She didn't like to mess around and hated romantic dates. He doubted reenacting a scene from one of her books would do much for Weiss. Actually, it might do too much. You've got no idea. Sable sighed. I knew it. What? Well, how hard could it be? His rising panic answered that question. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Weiss probably expected him to be a perfect date, especially with his experience. The truth was the exact opposite. Sex. He was proficient at it. Romantic overtures? Not so much. Okay, calm down. Do you have any flowers? I didn't think I should, he said. She's in her sister's room, not ours. If I give her any, she won't have anywhere to put them. What if she has to carry them with her all night? Ugh, typical man. You're overthinking things while trying to be helpful. Go get her some flowers. Sable's voice was firm. If she wants to keep them, she'll ask her sister for a vase. She can come back for them after the date. Right. That made sense. Why hadn't he thought of that? He didn't have the time to go to Vale, but he could stop by the gardens and steal a few. No one would notice. I'll get some. Anything else? Make sure you have an idea of what you want to talk about on the date. There's nothing worse than awkward silence, especially when she's gone out of her way to ask you out. Also, don't go in with the idea that she should be the one to start all the conversations. She's going to be just as nervous as you. Okay, fine, whatever. They could talk about the festival. Or was that too work-related? Or he couldn't talk about her family, because that really would be a bad idea. Is? Possible. But he didn't want to monopolize the conversation. Damn it, man, pull it together! You're a damn time traveler. You suffered loss over 1,000 times. You can handle a single date. It doesn't even matter if it's successful, since you're not even pursuing her. Except that, in a way, it did. If something was up with her, then he wanted to fix it. She was his partner. It only made sense. There are a few other things, Sable said. Here, I'll write a list down for you. Weiss, are you sure about this? Winter asked, for what felt like the 100th time. I'm not questioning your tastes, but then it should be fine. Weiss said, if you're not questioning my tastes, that is. Winter huffed and looked away, busying herself in some report on the side. It was clear she didn't approve. Well, that had been clear for days now. She didn't understand. Jaune wasn't someone you could judge on first appearances. She learned that. Once you dug deeper, once you got to know him, spent time with him, and fought past his attempts to push you away, well, things changed. I have no idea what you see in him. Determination, kindness, loyalty, confidence, dependability, poor reputation, a tendency to sleep with other women, a lack of respect for authority. Winter glared bitterly at the door. He's not perfect, Weiss. He's filled with flaws. Those are just the ones on the outside. What about his mental state? You can't tell me it's normal. Oh no. She laughed the stupidity of it all. I'd never call him normal. And you're okay with this? Have I not made that abundantly clear? Weiss pulled some white hair before her and brushed it. Already beautiful, and already brushed to perfection. It was now a little more than a nervous habit. She wanted to look her best. She had to look her best. Everything needed to be perfect. Weiss, you're rushing into things, Winter said. If this is over your meeting with the general, then I'd rather not talk about that, thank you. Winter growled and looked away. Although she tried to say it beneath her breath, Weiss caught her words nonetheless. And you won't even tell me about what it was, Winter muttered. Because I can't, Winter. I'm sorry. I've made up my mind, Winter. I know you don't approve, and I've tried to ignore my feelings. I can't. I love him. Whether or not he loved her back, well, that might not matter soon. She had a date with him. That was enough. She'd make it. I'm just worried for you, sister. You're going to get hurt. He wouldn't hurt me. Not intentionally, Winter argued. There's no need to look at me so shocked. As much as I disapprove, I know he would take a knife to his own throat than knowingly hurt you. It's what he might unintentionally do which concerns me. What he might have unintentionally already done. Life hurts. Wise said. That's a fact of it. If we let pain stop us from doing things, then nothing would ever be achieved. It is a snee's duty to shoulder, then burden wherever necessary, to the betterment of the family. Please don't quote father's lessons. It's not like you ever believed in them anyway, Wise. Don't start giving them now. I disagree with him as a person, she said. His lessons, however, they have some merit, so long as you water down the constant references to profit, reputation, and long-term success. It amused her to think she had taken her father's lessons literally. She would have already hired hit squads to kill every student Jaune had slept with. It would be a bloodbath in Beacon Halls. The point remains, she said. If I live in fear of rejection, I'll have no chance of winning him. Wise checked the clock and placed the brush down. She turned, arms open wide. How do I look? Winter stared at her. You look radiant, Wise. Wise felt more relieved than she did pleased. Thank goodness. She wondered a little on what to wear, thinking of how she might stretch a little further than she was comfortable with and go for a plunging dress, something to show off her curves, and make her seem a little sexier. In the end, she decided against it. She was who she was, and that wasn't her. The pale dress reached her knees, with one side that dwelled a little lower. The sneeze snowflake was etched into it with dust, sparkling lightly as the light caught it. Her top covered very much the same shape as her normal outfit, but was far more intricate. Light blue shoulders and sleeves gave way to a white midriff, with a slightly see-through shawl to cover her bare shoulders. The back was open, revealing skin with criss-crossing straps. With her white hair tied up into a single-sided ponytail, but now with the addition of a jeweled tiara, she certainly stood out. It was also painfully obvious who she was. It couldn't be helped. Everyone knew her name, or rather, her family's name. She realized early on she couldn't hide that, and then quickly decided she shouldn't hide it. Jaune knew. He didn't care. You don't think it's a little too urban? No, Wise. It's functional and beautiful at the same time, Winter said, much like you. Yes, you're right. I'm a huntress. Fighting is in my blood. The dress would enable that, as much as she didn't intend to use it in such a manner. The skirt was short enough to allow fast movement, and nothing hung too loose from her body. There was a knock at the door. Short, simple, a single strike. Weiss's knees weakened. She didn't think she'd ever been so afraid. No, that wasn't quite right. She'd been frightened when he was captured, but that hadn't made her feel like this. This was a bad idea. He didn't love her. He as good as said so. What was she doing forcing him to date her like this? This is going to be the most awkward night ever. Maybe she should call it off. I can tell him you're sick if you want. Winter offered. She sounded all too happy with the idea. It was that which forced her into action. No, I'm fine, Winter. She swallowed and took a quick moment to glance in the mirror. Not much makeup. She never had the need for it, other than a little color around her eyes. Should she have gone with more? Her skin looked pale. Too pale? Another no. Her legs almost gave in several times in the short distance between her and the door. When her hand fell on the handle, she took a second to steady herself. You can do this, she told herself. You have to do this. It's your only chance. She took a deep breath and opened the door. Hey Weiss. Jean-Arc stood before her, dressed in white. His normally wild hair was neat and orderly. Even with the military outfit, his eyes spoke of someone who wouldn't follow the rules, who would break them at every opportunity. She found herself getting lost in them, a deep blue that contrasts with the white of his suit and the gold of his hair. I got these for you. He held out some flowers for her. She took them gently. Thank you, she whispered. They smelled fresh and were in fact cool to the touch. He must have picked them recently. She could recall the colors from the gardens. That ought to have annoyed her, yet somehow it didn't. It was so very him. Would you like to come in while I place them? Jean leaned to the side and looked past her. I probably shouldn't. Weiss heard a scoff from inside and felt a small smile slip across her face. It relaxed her, took away the awkward edge. Jean was scared of her sister, or wary at least. Well, she could hardly blame him. Wait here, she said. I'll be back in a moment. It only took her a minute or two to locate a vase to place the flowers in, and although Winter glared at them, they would be safe until she returned. When she came back outside, she had to fight the urge to say or do something as Jean's eyes roved up and down her body. It wouldn't be the first time a man did that. Why it didn't annoy her like all the other times was a mystery. Even if she liked him, did he have to look at her with such interest? Did it have to make her feel so warm? You look beautiful. A weak compliment. Unspecific, vague, overused. Her cheeks flushed and she looked away. From anyone else, she wouldn't have been impressed. From him, it earned a giddy cheer in her mind. You as well, she said. You look handsome in a uniform. Are you ready to go? He nodded, bowed, and held out a hand for her. Weiss raised an eyebrow but accepted the gesture, placing her hand in his, and trying not to show her pleasure at the feel of it. His hands were larger than hers, much larger. It felt like he could have gripped both her wrists together in his hand. That thought sent all the wrong images to her mind, along with a question of what that might feel like on her own hips. She'd felt them, back at the dance, but her mind hadn't paid attention. There'd been too much else to think back then. Where to? He asked. I already arranged for a bullhead to take us into Vale, but I don't know the destination. You have? She was impressed. The restaurant is called El Elfstro's. I have never heard of it. She wasn't surprised. The waiting list was weeks in advance, if not months. The prices were equally absurd, even for someone like her, with a family name. Not to mention the fame her clientele would bring them. They'd only been too eager to go out, purchase a new table, and then restructure the entire restaurant to fit it in, all in under 4 hours. It would be worth it. This would be a night to remember. She was counting on it.